He didn't make it. Ron didn't make it.
We can get him. How? Get a hold of yourself, cunt. We're gonna send you back before it happened.
We're going back.
It's gonna attract your main enemy when you go back through.
Hitler.
No.
Macaulay Culkin.
No.
Britney Spears when she shaved her head.
No. Rah.
Fire up the Stargate.
Stargate's firing up. They're surrounding you! Get out of there! They're surrounding you! Get out of there!
Look! Scott, bullets aren't killing Raw! I need something! I need you right now, Scott!
Mute that cunt! Get back to the Stargate!
Scott! You opened the Stargate? Oh, you crazy son of a bitch!
You beautiful fucking LT!
Better eat this, you alien assholes! Jammed.
What are you saying, Mike?
I'm gonna have to activate it manually. Tell the boys that Central Little Gun works. That I love them.
We love you too. God, you've got big balls!
If you ever grew up watching Stargate SG-1, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Guys, like and comment. The comment section is a lot like the Stargate universe. Every time you go through and they get progressively worse. If you want to find out why this channel is so popular, get down there and get into that comment section. It's out of control. Guys, the biggest supporter of the channel right now is Big Daddy Unlimited. Big Daddy Unlimited is like the Costco of the gun world. You get in there, you get low prices on gear. Of course, you have to pay a little bit to get in there now. However, the first month is 99 cents. Get in there with the link right below. Check it out. If you want sick bags and plaid and gloves, we have LAX ammunition and, of course, Vertex. Discount code GRANDTHUMB. Cool 25% off on Vertex. Ladies, gentlemen, and, of course, my all-time favorites, SIG MCXs. Welcome to the channel. Thank you for watching today. Today, we're going to be talking about a firearm that I think has been requested quite a bit, and that is going to be the FN P90. Not the P90S. I was lucky enough to be able to get my hands on a full auto variant, the P90. Now, like I've said in the past, it's very unfortunate that it's not easier for civilians to get their hands on full auto weapons. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. On the one hand, I like doing these reviews to show you guys what the real deal weapons are like. On the other hand, I hate that it's harder for you guys to get them. But in any case, we have an actual P90 from Fabrique Nationale, and we've done a lot of rounds on this. Up to this point, I've only done about 3,000 rounds on the P90. So do understand that my time on the P90 is somewhat limited compared to firearms like the Mark 18 and the AR-15s and that type of thing, where on this Mark 18 alone, I probably got 70 or 80,000 rounds. So there are limitations to my knowledge here, but I feel like I have enough rounds to be able to talk about a little bit and maybe some of my experiences that I've had with it and some of the intricacies of the design itself. Now, we're not forgotten weapons. I'm not going into the history of the rifle or anything like that, or excuse me, of the submachine gun or anything along those lines. But rather, I just want to do a brief overview of what we kind of do best on Garand, which is talking about what is it like to hold, what is it like to shoot, what are the ergonomics like, what are some considerations when using a weapon such as this. So like we're going to do, we're going to go tip to butt. Now, before we do, let's talk a little bit about what makes this what it is. So this was essentially designed in response to a NATO request to develop something to replace 9mm. And the reason for that was that there was a large proliferation of body armor, and 9mm doesn't do so hot with body armor. So the 5.7 round was designed, and subsequently this weapon as well as the FN57 were both designed around those rounds. At the same time, Heckler & Koch were making the MP7 and a unreleased pistol that were designed to chamber their particular round, which is a 4.6. In subsequent events that happened afterwards, there's a lot of controversy surrounding it. The 5.7 was reported to have better terminal ballistics than the 4.6. Understand that both the MP7 with the 4.6 and the 5.7 with the P90 and the 5.7 have been adopted by various countries with varying amounts of success. But we're not talking about that so much. We're going to talk about the P90. So let's go ahead and let's go nut to butt, excuse me, let's go tip to butt on this, and let's talk about what makes this particular firearm what it is. Now, if you're like me, kind of my first introduction to the P90 was watching Stargate SG-1 back in the day and playing GoldenEye and all those games and Counter-Strike, and it's a very odd looking gun. I think it's for that reason they see a lot of TV shows that use this, because it is a very kind of futuristic looking design. It's very interesting in the way that they made everything work. So how does it actually function? Because on paper, what you have here is you have like a 5.7 pound weapon with a 50 round magazine that's bullpup. It's like 19.9 inches in length total, which is significantly shorter than even a Mark 18. So here's a Mark 18 in comparison, and this is about as short as you can possibly get with an AR without getting unreliable. So it's an incredibly compact design. So on paper, you're like, this looks really good, but how does it actually work? Let's get into it. So the cyclic rate on the P90 is about 900 rounds per minute. It's pretty blazing fast. Now that is slower than something like the Chris Vector, and that's roughly on par with the MP7. So on the end here, we have a Sansoku ASR muzzle brake. As far as how does it work, fine, the 5.7 doesn't have a whole lot of blast, so it's not doing an enormous amount. It definitely does help somewhat. It definitely does help somewhat mitigate recoil, but there really isn't that much recoil on the P90 to begin with. So it definitely does help mitigate it. Now the barrel on the P90 is 10.4 inches. That helps you get a lot of the velocity that you need to get out of the 5.7 round. Now with the 5.7, the ballistics are kind of, I've heard back and forth on them. Anywhere from the 5.7 is much sought after because it's a it's a killer round. The SS-190 can penetrate body armor at 150 meters, or what was it, like a millimeter of titanium with 20 layers of Kevlar at 150 meters and beyond up to 200 meters. But how does it actually work? So let's kind of get into it. Now, what have I heard about the 5.7 round? Well, not great things, to be honest. It's not really known for being a wonderful round. Now, you do hear stories about like cartels in Mexico, paying premiums for 5.7 because it's such a dangerous round. I haven't so much seen that from individuals who've used this in service, whether it be as police officers or overseas or whatever. They don't have great things to say about the capabilities of the round, and that goes for both the 5.7 and the 4.6 in the MP7 form. So understand that, kind of take that with a grain of salt for what it's worth. I'm not here testing ballistics, but I just haven't heard great things about the 5.7. But I mean, that being said, PDW calibers and 9mm calibers, they have their place. Lightweight, low recoil, low flash, that type of thing. So there is a reason to use them over rifle rounds, which are much more effective ballistically. That being said, do I still want to get shot with it? Of course not, no. Shot placement always matters with these types of weapons. Okay, moving from the barrel here, let's go to the front of the weapon. So I kind of just had that end right here. So up on the top, what used to be an integrated reflex sight on this has been replaced with a rail. So the rail is holding an aimpoint TL at 4 MOA with 2 side rails on the side to hold either a PEC or a light or something along those lines. Is on this rail right here with the sight, but you also have a peep sight through the rail right there. So if you look through it below the sight, you have a nice little sight picture. It's not great, it's definitely rudimentary, but at least you have something, you have some type of rear backup sight through this. And it's kind of them making best of the situation with the fact that this has very little rail space. Like many other submachine guns and PDWs, the P90 suffers from a lack of rail space if you need to mount IR lasers and that type of thing. You don't have a whole lot of space to do that and to work with it, especially if you have to have a switch. So a switch for a PEC or for a light is going to have to be put at kind of a weird position to make it work. So it's not the most ergonomic when it comes to that. And speaking of ergonomics, let's kind of move down to the grip here. The grip is interesting, right? It's a very interesting design. And what it's made to do is when you hold it, your hand wraps around the front right here, or you can put your hand all the way through. I prefer to wrap it with my thumb moving forward just on top of the charging handle right there. Meanwhile, your rear grip is right here, comes onto the trigger. It's odd, to say the least. It doesn't feel super comfortable. And you know me, I kind of like a more neutral grip for my wrist. So you're really kind of forced to kind of have your wrist very forward on the P90. As a result, it's not an incredibly comfortable firearm to hold, so I've never been a huge fan of that. This could be easily remedied by getting rid of this design right here and just adding some type of pistol grip that's a little bit more neutral, a little bit more conventional. I love how it looks, but that being said, it's just the unconventional design kind of leads to some uncomfortability when it comes to the P90. As well, the buttstock right here, the problem that you run into is because the weapon is so small, it's good and bad. Because it's so small, you have no length of pull. So that kind of leads into comfortability and ease of holding it up. It's not the most comfortable to hold up. So when you have a little bit more length of pull, like on the Mark 18 where I can pull the stock out, that allows me to more easily use my bones to hold the weapon up rather than my muscles. So I find that I actually get a little bit more fatigued holding the P90 up than I do the Mark 18, even though this obviously weighs less. It's just due to the way that I have to hold it. All right, moving from there, I've said enough about that. We have the charging handle. Charging handle is ambidextrous on either side. Easy to use, no big deal there. Coming down, we have the selector switch. Selector switch is ambidextrous, right? You can use it from left or right side. That is a good design. I actually do like the selector switch. It's pretty cool. The only problem that I can see with it is that you pretty much are using your trigger finger to actuate it. You can use your thumb off your support hand, but it's just not quite as nice. So if you need to switch to fire, there's going to be a delay between going from semi to fire because you have to lift off, then put your finger on the trigger. Compared to the AR, where you can flick it with your thumb, then pull into the trigger at the same time, which makes for a very quick reaction speed going from safe to fire. You should have your rifle on safe unless you're ready to fire. I absolutely believe in that principle. So, not the best. Okay, coming from there, let's talk a little bit about the trigger. So bullpups, if you don't know, have terrible triggers. So what is a bullpup? Basically, you have the fire control forward of where the magazine would go or the ejection port. In this case, it's very unconventional, but the magazine feeds right here, even though the magazine comes all the way up. So triggers and bullpups, they have like a very odd mechanism to reach back and release the hammer. Because of that, they're never that great. So let's go ahead and let's, for the first time on this channel, goes to the P90 trigger. Let's see how that feels. All right, so we're gonna switch this over to semi for this one. A lot of creep. It's very odd. It feels about 4 pounds, about 6 pounds. Let off isn't really a wall. It's a good reset. Yeah, the let off is very odd. It doesn't feel very predictable. I'm not a big fan, okay? Try it in full auto. No reset, of course, because it's full auto. Yeah, the trigger, is not great in my opinion on the P90. Every time I see videos of these types of guns, people are like, "Oh, cool, yeah, P90, you know, pop, pop. Oh, yeah, I love this. Feels great. What a great gun." You know, that's not a review, right? So, honestly, the trigger, the safety, the charging handle, everything's kind of lackluster in my opinion, and that comes up to the magazine as well. The magazine is so cool, right? So you have this top-mounted magazine, and it holds 50 rounds, and they're held sideways to the gun, and as they come to the end here, they have a little ramp and they spiral down and they feed in. It's super cool. But man, first off, magazine changes are super awkward. So what you have to do is you have this release right here at the back. So you pop this back, lift up, pull out, never pull out, and then you load it back in and smack it into place, and then you can load your weapon. It's just an odd design. It's not very quick to change magazines on this. And you know, how much does that matter? It does, because it's a very odd reload. I'm sure you can get used to it, but I'm just not very fond of the P90 and reloading it. So moving back from there, the P90 is very cool in that it ejects all of its rounds straight downwards, and it ejects them with a lot of vigor. So it's good in the fact that it gets out of your face. If you're shooting ambi, you don't have to worry about switching the ejection port. That is a really cool part of the P90, and I definitely do appreciate that about this particular design, how it spits those rounds out straight down. That just makes my life way easier. So that is a cool thing about that. Moving back, we have the buttstock right here. Works fine. Your cheek, like on all bullpups, is right next to the action right here, so it does get quite loud compared to like a conventional weapon like an AR or an MP5 or something, or even an MP7. So do be aware of that if you have any type of ear pro in, because that you're still going to get that bone conduction of the sound into your skull, and it's going to be louder than other weapons. So P90, where does it stand? I mean, looks super cool. It's been all through the Stargate universe, James Bond, everywhere. I just don't consider it a wonderful submachine gun. I'm sure it has its place. It's very compact. It's very small. It's very capable. It has a large magazine capacity. It's just awkward. The trigger's not great. It does have a very nice recoil impulse, and it is a direct blowback, so it's very surprising. This thing does not move at all when you shoot it. I just prefer other firearms like the MP7 or the SIG MPX or the MP5, to be honest, over the P90. That being said, do I want to own one? Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to buy one for sure. But I just think that there are better submachine guns out there than the P90. And I think if you talk to a lot of people, you'll see that many tend to agree. And I think that there's a reason that it's not as popular as other submachine guns that are currently out there. So gentlemen, what does it come down to? Buy it, shoot it, it's cool. I think that there are better things out there. But as with everything, this thing looks super cool. Despite that though, you're not gonna look cool if you don't train. Make sure you train, gentlemen. Cogworks, Haley Strategic, Esoteric, Darcy, Tony Cowden, all these great guys out there. Go check them out and get some training. That's what's gonna matter when it comes to weapons like this. Ladies, gentlemen, thank you so much for watching. As usual, stay looking cool, and I've got nothing else for you guys. Okay, last thing for you guys. If I could give you any piece of advice in your life, it would be not to piss off Marines. That's all I got for you guys. Of course, if you've gotten this far, you are an ultra fan. Guys, the best way to support me is through Patreon. Get in there, support. I have a link right below. That money goes directly into helping me build this channel up. Also, every 4 months, I'm going to select a Patreon guy to come out, film with me, have a good time, spend a day out in Seattle with me, shoot, and have some good food. So, could be you, maybe not. I mean, there's a lot of people who are subscribing, but nonetheless, I want to find some ways to get back. I'll be doing more in the future as well, probably larger dinners and other events. So, stay tuned. Lots coming. Thank you for watching, guys. Love you.